Let's look at this one here. Okay, we did talk about the remainder theorem, right? And okay, so the remainder is that, and when two polynomials divided and the remainder is 0, the divisor is a factor of the dividend. So if f of x is a polynomial, okay, so basically, like here, that's what I was saying first time around, isn't it? When we were saying, okay, if x minus 1 is a factor, obviously x plus 1 equal to 0, because if it's a factor, it must give a remainder of 0. So if I take the 1 over, x is negative 1. It means this negative 1, if I sub it into this equation, I must get 0. Okay? And we did find out that it was actually 0, because if we replace negative 1 in there, and replace negative 1 in there, and replace negative 1, and okay, we did find that to be 0, right? Now, this is how the long division works, okay? Like we're now factorizing this using the long division, because we know that x plus 1 is a factor, okay? And we're dividing it into 2x to the power of 3 minus 2x squared minus 10 squared minus 10x minus 6. Okay? So what now happens is that if we take x and divide into 2x to the power of 3, x into 2x to the power of 3, remember how we do it? Those days that we used to do factorization, it's kind of work like that. So x into 2x to the power of 3 becomes 2x to the power of 2. Why? Because the x's have divided each other. Okay, so take this 2x squared, multiply by the x, it just goes back to 2x3, no problem. Take this 2x squared and multiply with a positive 1. It's what? Positive 2x squared, right? Is that so? Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole expression and subtract it from there. Okay? Of which 2x to the power of 3 minus 2x to the power of 3 is just 0 itself. Alright? Negative 2x squared minus 2x, well, because if you minus a positive, you end up subtracting it. So negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4x squared. Okay? Now, we have to bring this 10x down. Right? So when we bring this 10x down, what we're now going to do is to say, okay, what is x into negative 4x squared? What is it? We found it to be negative 4x. Negative 4x, you are dividing it. Okay? Alright. So 4x times x, negative, sorry. 4x times x becomes negative 4x squared. No problem. Negative 4x times positive 1. It gives you negative 4x, right? Because you're multiplying with a positive 1. Okay? So that's, negative 4x. Right. You are going to take this, subtract it. So remember, when you subtract a negative, you end up adding it. Yes. So negative 4 plus 4, okay, that disappears because it's just 0. Negative 10 minus a negative, so that's plus. So negative 10 plus 4 gives us what? Negative 6, right? Negative 10 plus 4. So that's negative 6x. Okay, this negative 6 over here, we're going to bring it down here because we're going to need it down here. Now, here's the thing. What is x into negative 6x? It's negative 6, right? Okay, multiply that back, it is the same thing. Now, negative 6 times positive 1, what is it? It's negative 6. Okay, and, because we're supposed to subtract these. So negative 6 plus 6 is 0, and negative 6 plus 6. Okay, everything simplifies down. All right. So what we've just done is to show that our expression can now also be written as f of x is equal to x plus 1 by 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. Okay, 2x squared, 4x, and 6. Can't we factor out a 2 there? I think we can, right? So let's take out a 2. Okay, and then x plus 1. After taking out 2 from 2x squared, we have x squared. Taking out 2 from 4x, we have 2x because 4 divided by 2. Taking out 2 from 6 leaves us with a 3. Right. Now, can you see what's happening? The first one is the factor. The other factor is still a quadratic. So we have to factorize that quadratic. And
Quadratic formula.
we can use quadratic formula, we can factorize. It's better you use quadratic formula when you're solving this as an equation, which we are going to do right after this example. Well, you can if you still remember how to factorize with a quadratic formula. But this is actually easy because the coefficient of x squared is 1, so that makes it easy. If there was a 2 in front of the x squared, then yeah, that would be another thing for another day. Remember, we look for factors of negative 3 that add up to negative 2, right? So factors of negative 3, because if I have x negative 3 and x positive 1. Oh, okay. But x plus 1 and x plus 1, they're appearing twice, isn't it? So why don't we write it like this? 2 by x plus 1 squared by x minus 3. Okay, now we fully factorized this thing. Okay, so solving this equation. Right, obviously we need to rearrange that equation. Okay, so we need to rearrange it and write it as follows. 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 3x is equal to 0. Yeah, because it has to be equal to 0, then we can solve. Okay, no need to do long division here because we don't have a constant in this equation. So there will be no need. There's x squared, there's x to the power of 3. So just factor out x there. Okay? Check out x because it's the common factor. So taking out x from 2x to the power of 3 leaves us with what? 2x squared, right? Okay. Taking out x from positive 5x squared leaves us with a positive 5x. Taking out x with from a negative 3 leaves a negative 3 is equal to 0. Now, if you remember from quadratic equations, what this means is that x equal to 0 or 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 is equal to 0. That's what it means, right? Okay, so the first part is done. But this, is that not a quadratic equation?
Yes, sir.
So we're just going to solve it, isn't it? So we're just going to use the quadratic formula. Okay, I know you know this formula very, very well. And even if you forget it, it's there in the exam. So let's use that. That's negative of 5 plus or minus square root of b squared, so that's 5 squared minus 4 by our a there is 2 and our c there is negative 3 over 2 by our a is 2. Right. This is just gonna do in the calculator because I'm sure by now you know how to do this. X is a half and x is equal to what?
Negative 3.
Okay, so our roots that we have, therefore, is what? X equal to negative 3, x equal to naught, and x equal to a half. Do them by order, from smallest to biggest. Why? Because we are going to need to know how to do that when we deal with cubic graphs. So let's put this one into standard form, right? Which means we're going to rewrite it like this. X cubed minus 12x plus 16 is equal to 0. Okay, in this case, they didn't give us, they didn't give us the factors, okay? Now it's not quadratic because this x to the power of 3. So you can't make it a quadratic, you can't use the quadratic formula. Okay, so we need to find factors, right? Whatever factors you're going to think of, they must be numbers that can divide into 16. Okay. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so let's try positive 2. Okay, so let's try positive 2. So that is 2 to the power of 3 minus 12 by 2 plus 16. That becomes 8. 8 minus 24 is negative what? Negative 16. Oh, yeah, that does become 0. So, we are lucky we found our factors first time around. Okay?
Wait, so why is x?
We just tried any factors. But remember, the numbers that we have to use as factors are numbers that divide into 16. So we can't just choose 5 at random. It won't work, obviously. So let's work with numbers that are factors of 16. Okay? Negative 2, well, in some instances could work, but this time we found positive 2, so we could. So that means our factor is what? X minus 2 is a factor. Why? Remember our factor theorem? If 2 gives you a remainder of 0, then x minus 2 is the factor, right? According to that factor theorem that we just learned about when we started. Okay, so now we're going to do long division with these. Okay, so we're going to do long division now. Right, let's see, x minus 2 into, okay, so x3. Remember, there is no term in x squared here. So that's obviously a 0x squared, right? Because remember, there's no term in x squared. But I kind of need it there because we're going to need our x squared. There is no coefficient of x squared, so that means x squared in there is 0.
So now why don't you just write x squared?
Then you are now saying it's 1x squared, which is not correct. Okay, minus 12x plus 16. Right, so let's start dividing. X dividing into x to the power of 3 gives us x squared, right? Is that so?
Yes.
Okay, it gives us x squared. Okay, multiply that back, that's obviously x3. X squared times negative 2, so that's negative 2x squared. So now you're going to subtract the whole thing. Obviously, they cancel. So 0, if you minus a negative, you end up adding it, isn't it? So minus 2, so that actually becomes positive 2x squared. Okay, we're going to bring this negative 12x down because we're going to need to use that. Okay, x into positive 2x squared, what do you get? Positive 2x, right? Is that so? X into positive 2x squared. It's positive 2x. Okay, positive 2x times x is positive 2x squared. 2x times negative 2. That obviously makes negative 4x. Right, now we need to subtract these two. So this minus that is just 0. Negative 12 minus a negative, so we add it. Negative 12 plus 4 gives us what? Negative 8. Is that it? Okay, so that's negative 8x. Okay, now we need to bring this 16 positive 16 down. Okay, now we're going to divide x into negative 8x. That is negative 8, right? And negative 8 times x, well, just simplify it back. Negative 8 times negative 2, that is going to bring positive 16. Oh, we are minusing the same thing, so obviously that means it falls away. Okay, so what we now have as our equation is this. The first factor is x minus 2, and the other factor is what? X squared plus 2x minus 8, and this is equal to 0, because this and that is the same. So, let's use our quadratic theory. So, x minus 2 equal to 0, or x squared plus 2x minus 8 equal to 0. That's what happens when you factorize two brackets, right? Each bracket is equal to 0. Is that not it? That's it. Okay, so this one obviously is x equal to positive 2. Okay, simply just simplifies to positive 2. Now that one is what we still need to solve. And that's a quadratic, isn't it? So we solve it in any way you want. Quadratic formula or factorization, or if you are crazy enough to use completing the square, you can do that. Why would you complete the square? Let's just use the formula. Okay, it's much easier. So that's negative 2, remember negative b, negative 2 plus or minus square root of b squared. So we're going to take 2 squared minus 4 by a is 1, c is negative 8, divide that by 2 times a is 1. Right, what values of x's do you get when you do that? 2 and?
Where's the
2 and negative 4.
Yeah, just put this in the calculator. Now, if you remember when you did the nature of roots and those kinds of things, if we got the same number twice, it counts as one root, isn't it? So this particular equation only has two roots. Okay? The first one is x equal to negative 4, and the other one is x equal to 2. We don't need to write it twice because it's the same answer really. So there's no point in writing it twice because it's one root that is just repeating itself. So we don't write it twice. So what it means is that this particular equation has got only two answers, two roots. Okay? That other one is 3 because we found all the 3 answers.